This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Mark Vientos, that's the story. I mean, this guy could hit 30 ding-dongs this season and wasn't even on the roster to start the year. I mean, It's unbelievable. Mark Vientos, the player he's become, he was pissed off beginning of the year not being on the roster. He works his way on. Brett Beatty is going to get traded. Brett Beatty has no future with the New York Mets. I'm sorry. If you like him, too bad. He's gone. And Mark Vientos is that guy, whether it's at third base, whether you move him first if you don't bring back Alonso, or whether he replaces JD as a DH if you don't bring back JD. Mark Vientos has to be in the lineup next season, and he really continues to come up with big hits and particularly home runs. I mean, 25 homers when he didn't play part of the year and potentially finishing with 30. It's pretty remarkable, and he's a part of the Mets' future. And this was a guy that we thought was part of a Mets trade of any sort. You did not expect Mark Vientos to be part of the future. Well, now he's got to be part of the future.
Yeah, and he was kind of like the third forgotten man, or maybe even fourth if you want to count Ronnie Mauricio as well, of the Mets babies or the baby Mets or whatever you want to call them. But he's grown up before our eyes and pretty quickly. You look at Francisco Alvarez, who's kind of take a step back offensively. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if he's just struggling hitting. I know Eric Chavez mentioned that in some article that was written in Newsday. I think Tim Healy wrote it, if I'm for certain. But he has struggled offensively. Brett Beatty is just, I don't know. He's coming off as a quadruple A player, right? I mean, he's hitting in before he got hurt, he was hitting pretty well in triple A, but he just can't hit up here. And his defense is not even enough to warrant him staying on the roster. And now you got a guy like Mark Vientos, who in the offseason, I don't know if you remember, but we saw him before spring training even started with Francisco Lindor in Puerto Rico, and they were training at third base. They were taking grounders. He was teaching him how to play the infield, and he's been pretty solid at third base. I think that gets lost with all the power numbers and everything. He is at the top of the list as one of the best third basemen in the league right now, and the Mets have a good opportunity with him because next year, whether Pete Alonso stays or goes, obviously he can move to first base. He could stay at third base. And if JD Martinez leaves, he could DH. So there's so much versatility when it comes to a guy like Mark Vientos. I'm very excited to see where this goes moving forward. Obviously, there could be a sophomore slump or anything like that, but he has been steady all season. He's not let any type of slump affect him at all. He's done so well. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, he's also got 2 more pre-arbitration eligible years, which means you're going to get him pretty much dirt cheap the next 2 years. And if he's a starter hitting nearly 30 homers and you're paying him around $1 million, I mean, it's Happy Meal prices for an everyday player that would get 20, 25 million in the open market. So you're getting a deal out of him, and you got to love it. And this was a guy who came in and last year and maybe coming to this year was a little bit arrogant, did not have a good attitude, was a little bit cocky, was a little bit full of himself, and he shouldn't have been because he didn't do anything in the big leagues. He had an occasional homer. He wasn't a good defensive player, but he's kind of used that arrogance and that cockiness and turned it into confidence. And you're seeing that in the field. You're seeing that at the plate. Because listen, in the field, like you said, he's been good, but he's been good lately. Like he started off, he was making some bad errors earlier in this season. Now lately, if he's not making a play, he's at least knocking it down. You saw that today where he made a diving play. He didn't throw the guy out, but he kept the ball in the infield, and he kept the runner that was getting a second from going to third. And those kind of plays in a playoff push make a major difference. Unfortunately, the Mets offense couldn't do anything today, but that ended up being what would have been a big play if the Mets offense could have done something. So Mark Vientos, cheat, confident, and a part of the future.
And I think the fact that Francisco Lindor is right next to him helps the situation out and has kind of been like that big brother to him. They are basically, and I posted this on X the other day, they are Batman and Robin in the lineup together. Anytime now I see Brandon Nimmo bat second, I start getting frustrated because I like the 1-2 punch of Francisco Lindor and as well Mark Vientos